What's up, everybody? Unrested here, back again today with another JFAQ, and today we're going to go over, after just finishing up why not to come to Japan, or will Japan solve your problems, we're going to go with today, what problems send people back to their home country? What things do they face that they cannot handle that send them back to where they came from? Not that there's anything wrong with that, not that there's anything wrong with heading back, but what are some discouraging or possibly painful things they might have to suffer through in order to get past the first kind of honeymoon period that a lot of us experience when we get here and then push into the kind of wall you hit around 3 months? Let me just describe what I'm talking about here at the beginning. The first 2 to 3 months that you're here in Japan, if you're planning on staying past the time of a tourist visa and possibly living here permanently, is getting past the honeymoon period. Your first 2 to 3 months are wonderful. You usually discover a lot of new things, are absolutely enchanted with this wonderful country, and there's many, many new things that you're learning about, seeing, speaking to, people you're meeting. It's really fun. I'm not gonna lie, there's still times I reminisce about my very first year here in Japan, especially when I get around a certain area called Sakuragawa, which was the first area I ever lived in. If I ever pass my apartment in that area, I get this big wave of nostalgia and how good of a feeling I had when I first arrived right off the plane. But you're going to get past that, and when you do, you hit a wall. A lot of people describe going through this the same as a sudden homesickness, a sudden culture shock, a sudden realization that, holy crap, this place is my home now. This is where I'm living. This is where I work. This is where I will come home to every single day. This is not just a journey to another land. This is now my land. It's a bit of a shock, especially if you had no sort of training in any sort of Japanese language or tradition or culture like me. I myself, I studied, once I found out I was going to Japan, I studied for about 3 to 6 months, all about the language and the culture, but that is not enough time to learn such a vast amount of information about a country that's been around for literally thousands of years. So, less to say, I had quite a bit to take in a very short time. I did experience quite a bit of culture shock. Not when I first got here, because it's kind of something you expect. You're like, okay, yeah, I'm not going back to my own country. I'm going to a brand new place where everything's a little bit different and there's a very rich culture I've never seen before. It was more of a sense of, wow, now I have no choice but to face this stuff whether I understand it or not. So, let's talk about 5 quick points. 5 quick points. I'm going to talk about, number one, food. Now, food might seem like something's pretty petty for you to go back home for, but you would be surprised how many people head back home just because they can't have their favorite eats and snacks. Coming here, you're going to find there's way less variety in everything and anything you ever ate back home. Everything from cereal, even down to just the basics of bread. There is little to no place to buy wheat bread here in Japan. Sorry, it's a true fact. Almost every loaf of bread you will ever buy is a white loaf of bread. It is super high in calories, super processed, and super man-made. It is not very delicious to eat for I myself, hence I tend to stay away from it. Nonetheless, you can buy things like wheat rolls and stuff like that, but to have an actual sandwich on wheat bread is rare. So less to say, that is something that happens to almost every department and category of food. Slim to none pickings as far as variety is concerned, unless you're getting into Japanese-based food. Of course, anything indigenous to the country has a lot more variety, but there's a lot of food coloring and sugars, syrups, and things like that that Japanese people do not allow. Well, I shouldn't say Japanese people. The ward offices or trade commissions or whoever controls that aspect does not allow into this country, and it's actually good for your health. I mean, take a look. I'm still pretty fit at age 35, and honestly, I have Japan to thank. They kind of stopped me from eating all the nasty snacks I would have eaten back in America. I'm just going to be honest. But for some people, that's pretty crushing. There's comfort food, there's soul food, and there's foods that you just can't get out here. Moving on to our next thing is a little bit of xenophobia. Xenophobia is, some people talk badly about it, that it's people being discriminatory against another country or people due to the fact that they are scared of it. The literal translation of xenophobia is afraid of the unknown. Afraid of, sometimes it can be used as afraid of a magically unknown, afraid of a culturally unknown, traditionally unknown. Xeno, just meaning the unknown. And I think that is something you will experience. It's not necessarily out of any sort of disdain, hate, or mistrust of a society or place. It can just be out of innocent fear. There's certain aspects of things that people can't get over, such as just doing normal things like ordering food. Going to a restaurant and being to order completely in Japanese when that restaurant obviously speaks zero English, has no menu in English, and everything you look at is a big, complicated, full 20 strokes of kanji. That can be a bit intimidating and understandable. It can send people home. Xenophobia. I would say next is homesickness. We talked about food, and that can kind of be something that connects to homesickness, but there can be multiple aspects that connect you to homesickness. Really missing your own family, your friends, and at its most basic, a conversation in your native tongue. That can really, really damper people's spirits. I myself was raised an only child, so I will say I have been lucky enough to be able to face being alone here at certain points where I had little to no friends. Not that I'm bad at making friends, but I did have a point here when my very first job went bankrupt. Every single teacher there went home almost. No, I am the only teacher left here from that job, and that was 600 teachers. Wow. So you can imagine. I went from, I had 40 teachers that I worked with on my shift. We were all pretty good friends. We all went out to drink, have fun at bars, clubs, parties. This was long before I was married, mind you. And all of them are gone. And I did face at least a good 2 years of making it very difficult to find friends here in Japan. I wasn't good enough to be able to speak the language to make Japanese friends, and I had no connection to making any kind of English-speaking friends because everybody at my job was a Japanese person, which was nothing wrong with that, but I tend to not actually hang out of sight of work with colleagues at this point. It's kind of just my own professional, I don't know, rule of thumb. And I went through a period of just, being very lonely here. Luckily, being an only child helped me face that pretty well, but for some people that is brutal. I have seen people head home because there's little to no one to talk to. Last point I want to just try out for you and just let you know is the final and long-lasting culture shock. The aspects of culture shock are not exactly what you have read on the internet. A lot of sites are obsolete and outdated as far as what they talk about you're going to get culture shock from in Japan. People are not going to walk up to you and be amazed that you have blonde hair and blue eyes. That's like 1980s Japan. In modern day Japan, the culture shock that you're going to face is when you get really deep into the society. Not that there's anything literally quote-unquote shocking, it's just things that are hard for you to accept, understand. For example, a very small aspect that I can talk about is wa, or harmony of the workplace. There is a very strict manner in which people work at Japanese jobs and workplaces. It is called the wa, or the harmony of the workplace, in which there is a certain code that people go by. For example, if you have a complaint about somebody who you work with, you do not complain directly to that person. You complain to a higher up or a second party who can then relay that message in a nicer way and avoid confrontation. It's not them stabbing you in the back, it's them going about the way the code of the workplace is. There is rules set in every company, and they may be horribly inefficient. It is not your job to come to that company and tell them how they can do it better. It is your job to come there and follow those rules. That is kind of a culture shock situation where you're just like, wow, you mean I can't just come here and, dictate my American learned, let's make this place more efficient type attitude, or I know a better way to do this type attitude? You may know an excellent and awesome way in which to make a company run so much smoother. They do not want to hear it. This is Japan. Sorry. Also, they might have other reasons attached to why they're doing the things that they do that you may totally not understand and may be totally over your head. And you'll find out way later and be very glad you avoided starting any kind of confrontation over that. One last aspect that I wanted to talk about there, that is culture shock that I experienced myself. I did go through that. I did suffer through that. All the things I listed there I went through. Maybe something you suffer through too. If it's something that you feel you totally can't avoid and can't face, I would seriously question ways in which you can make a contingency plan when you come to Japan. Otherwise, I would say just be ready to avoid those, conquer those, and tackle those. If you decide to come here, I am Unrested. This is JFAC. I hope you like what you saw here today. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe.